Welcome back to Hearthstone Grandmasters. We hope you enjoyed that interview with RDU by TJ. Look, it's always nice to hear from the players that are, outside of games. We don't get to do the player interviews as much as we would like in the last season and this season, of course. So we're doing our best to try and catch up with some of the players there. But we are going to be going into xBlyzes versus Bunnyhoppor, Sol, and the winner of this is going to go through to another top 4 tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely, and it will be insane for either of these players to do so, just based on the records that they've built up. Bunnyhoppor over a very long period of time, xBlyzes to a more ridiculous level and over a very short period of time.
Yeah,
and the streak of results that they've been able to put together. But yeah, xBlyzes was actually just tweeting, kind of commenting on this, xBlyzes is just a high roller idea. And she put out a tweet saying, yeah, sure, he gets lucky sometimes, but so does everyone. But, sometimes he's winning games by playing well, sometimes he's winning games by his opponent throwing. And I think I can count on one hand the amount of times I've seen Bunnyhoppor outright throw a game. So I don't think he'll be donating too many gifts over to xBlyzes this game. So I think very much looking forward to this one, because if anything, I think we might actually achieve full Hearthstone balance. We truly do have both sides of the force in this one, I think.
100%. And as we do get into our game number 1, which, hey, look at this, a priest mirror. I do just want to kind of jump on xBlyzes' point a little bit there and be like, well, yeah, the lucky outcomes happen in every single game of Hearthstone, right? Some things are fortunate, whether it's just when you draw your cards and certain outcomes of maybe RNG effects. But the point is, if you look at xBlyzes' record, no person alive is that lucky that often, right? And if that's xBlyzes, and someone send him for testing, because we need to work out what's going on. Because you cannot just be lucky that often, which is the key point, right? And yes, there's some moments that look great, but I think xBlyzes has got a lot more than just some fortunate moments behind him. Here, though, I am interested to see if xBlyzes, obviously depends on what his hand looks like, but just to see if he takes a more aggressive approach in general, because I do think out of these two players, Sol, Bunnyhoppor is definitely the one who's happy to sit back and play the long game.
Well, you say that, but based on Season 1 of GM, Bunny probably played more of these long, exhaustive, two-fatigue priest mirrors as they always were back then. There was almost no way around it. And then on top of that, I actually think he potentially played them the best out of everyone that we saw. But he did not win a single one of them. As far as I've seen, Bunnyhoppor has never won a priest mirror in his life.
Right.
So maybe...
Not even on ladder.
Yeah, no, maybe he might feel the need to do something different here and not just, suffer through another hour-long piece of misery where he ends up losing in fatigue to something that gets generated. But, I mean, if it's the right way to do it, I'm sure Bunnyhoppor won't fall into any traps like that. He's just going to play the game the best that he can.
Yeah, and again, that's I just feel like the type of person Bunnyhoppor is if he's decided this is what you do, even if he loses a lot, but he's convinced that's how you play it, he probably just sticks to it, and it might just be a few rough moments. But we do see an early Zephyrus here from xBlyzes, which is going to be answered by an early Zephyrus from Bunnyhoppor, neither player having raised dead yet, but what do you make of this? Just a Zephyrus on curve in the priest, in Highlander priest. Is the mana something he's going to really gain tons from?
I think with xBlyzes' hand in particular, he has a pretty strong curve for a wild growth. I think Bunnyhoppor's hand is a little bit sketchier in that regard, although I guess equivalent to xBlyzes Siamat, for example. Bunnyhoppor has a Wave of Apathy Cabal in the same combination, which is kind of equally powerful. So yeah, I think they both have the opportunity to play out a higher value hand here, but also early Zephyrus does do a lot of things in the matchup. It does set up for that raised dead draw. If it does come off the top in the future turns, you'd now have that Zephyrus dead nice and early, so it's pretty likely that you're going to get it back. Secondly, it just gets it done and gets it out of your hand so that it's not a mind render target a few turns further down the line, right? You just get it played.
And it's one of the complications, isn't it? Whereas if your opponent can steal things from your hand, such as Mind Render, where they kind of steal the whole hand and then play whatever they want, it is weird where you draw the line of what's a good enough turn or what's a good enough use from this card. Has it done enough work? And it really is tough. But with both players doing the wild growth openings with Zephyrus, I guess we are back to square one. Well, players now having access to Soul Mirror, I do think this is going to start being a bit of a... Funnily enough, Priest turns into a bit of a slugfest, doesn't it? In the mid game, where you are just trying to stick some minions, and it is all just about making those trades as well as you possibly can. But here, I wonder... No, okay. I was just seeing if there's any way for like Bunnyhoppor to steal the, well, Shadow Madness Decage and then kill it off. Well, unless I'm missing something, I don't see anything consistent.
Consistent? No. High rolly? Absolutely.
High rolly? Always.
Sethic, Shadow Madness, Holy Smite off the Sethic? Yeah, sign me up.
Oh, is this going to be stealing the cards like this? Okay.
Just going to coin it out with the Cabal, yeah. This is the clean way to do it. I was kind of talking about this interaction when Bunny first picked the Wild Growth.
Let me change your mind.
The OG
Blaze does-
Cabal Raven.
Blaze does have the Tiamat response, but he would lose it in the process. He's just going to get it back again, kind of, or at least create a dupe. Yeah, just going to go for Rush and Windfury and reduce this board down a little bit more.
A simple spell should do.
Interesting. Wonder how close that was in his mind between just Rush Divine Shield and just taking care of the Cabal and keeping his 6/6 on board. Obviously, you then give your opponent pretty strong options to be able to deal with your 6/6 if they can and just push past you.
It's not quite equal, and you'll understand when I say, but I think with Blyze saying his Tiamat will trade for the Cabal and the wave-ish turn, I think that's a pretty reasonable play, you know, to just, even if it has to die, to just swap the combo for a Tiamat to a certain extent.
Certainly probably better for Blyze than if it happened the other way around, right? Like if he just went empty board, okay, Tiamat, Divine Shield, Windfury, and then got Wave of Apathy Cabal.
My blood be born again.
I've just realised we've done an absolute disaster here, Raven. I say we in the royal sense. It's entirely me.
I thought you were going to say, and it's entirely you. What have I done? What have you done now?
Was not logged into Spectator at the start of the game, which means it's not going to keep like perfect track of absolutely everything. So life just became much more difficult from my side of
You're
things.
here to do one job.
I know. Tell me about it.
Sethic is going to help with a slight problem Blyze has right now, with just a little bit of a low hand count. Oh, Psyche Split looks good, but it is a Wave of Apathy, and he went... Whoa, okay, I didn't really expect that. He wants more out of this Sethic. I think that would have been my last choice. I was just wondering what happens if he just Psyche Splits his Sethic. That seemed insane.
Yeah, I think the way the rest of this turn panned out, though, he'll be perfectly happy with it. The extra chain of generated spells has been incredibly strong for him.
Also, we're now looking at a card I am surprised hasn't made the cut in Highlander in the form of that initiation. I think the card's really good.
Eh,
You're not a fan?
not sold, no. It costs 6. 6 is a lot.
Okay, note to self, any card that costs 6 is probably not good. 'Cause that's a lot.
Like, sure, it can look really strong in, like, back and forth mid-rangey mirrors like this, where, you know, just kill a minion, get a minion of your own. But, like, some of the times you're just going to be playing against, like, freaking Stealth Rogue, right? Where you have to pay 6 mana to kill a 3/1. That doesn't feel quite as good.
Right. Mainly for me, it's the fact that in Highlander, there are these slots that you have that you kind of, you know, sort of give to a card like this to help you out in some matchups and maybe not others. But yeah, I do see your point. It's obviously going to be a little bit slow against some aggro. But still, good that Blyze has it now. He can make some great use of it in this mirror match.
Yep. Yeah, should be put to good use at some point in this game for sure.
This timeline amuses me.
Bunnyhoppor not having a great answer for this board, honestly. Does have that Cobalt Spellkin to, again, keep just the value in hand high. But xBlyzes is doing a fairly solid job of, although nothing mind-blowing on board, it's just he has the board, right? It's just having the minions that stick versus your opponent is worth quite a deal in this matchup.
It is for sure, yeah. Especially in this particular pan out we have right now where neither player is hitting the Galakron. It means the game is never quite settling into like the grindy super late game thing that it can become. And that, you know, if Bunnyhoppor never finds Galakron, for example, and has to continue allocating resources to answering board states, eventually he is just going to run out of stuff to do, which can be potentially very dangerous for him.
And here we go. Mind Render in hand.
You are too late. His return.
Okay, sure.
4 mana 6/6, that's alright.
Yep, sign me up. But the problem I just alluded to does exist the other way around as well, where xBlyzes is pushing so aggressively here that he needed some kind of backup for that, because otherwise once he's out of minions, he's just kind of out of a plan as well. So he was going to need to have drawn Galakron, or pretty much that Mind Render as well from this point, because the strategy he's having of just aggressively playing out his cards and tempoing very, very hard does support the idea of Mind Render then following that up, because you'll be giving a relatively low value hand over to your opponent eventually.
And this matchup really is just a tug of war, isn't it? It's just so back and forth. The players just keep jockeying for the position on board. And it takes something pretty big to break that, right? Or I guess it just takes, it's just the grind, isn't it? Because both players still have Soul Mirror. Both players do have access to either stall or just hard removal now, especially here, Bunnyhoppor's hand with double Shadow Word Rune and double Plague. It really is just whoever can stick the minions for multiple turns is going to start pushing ahead. But there are also responses as well, so I think, at least in Highlander, it seems to be that the games are just going to go long unless something absolutely disastrous happens for one of the players.
This is a cute turn from xBlyzes, though. Penance first, Pyro, Initiation. Reborn triggers, Pyro clears up, and obviously you killed the Sethic with the Initiation, so you get a Sethic of your own. But that is about it. That's xBlyzes' game now. Like, he is done. He's going to have to start playing with Bunnyhoppor's cards pretty soon.
I was going to say, I don't know what you're on about. It looks like xBlyzes has nearly a full hand from where I'm looking.
Yeah.
He has to sacrifice 3 mana to fill his hand up.
Yeah. I will have that right back. Thank you very much. That is
Bunnyhoppor
mine.
just the better sales pitch, I guess, bringing the Sethic Veilweaver back to his side.
That Sethic's flip-flopping more than TJ's opinions on xBlyzes.
Does Bunnyhoppor just value an Onyxia here as just a card he can just play and create a threat with? I think so. Doesn't overly need card draw right now. Deathwing doesn't really play too well. And that's a big deal. xBlyzes could have played Onyxia. So there's the nerf. Oh no, he couldn't because the buff doesn't transfer. Sorry. But yeah, in some worlds, he could have played Nate Drop, but can't now. Yeah, the description just fails.
Kind of just trying off a little bit there.
Yeah, they just don't know where to go. So Sol, what do you think of this turn?
It's not pretty, is it? Like, it's not the kind of pop in hand he would have wanted from the Mind Render. He really needed something to
Taj, though.
Yeah, would have wanted something to like generate him a big board right now, so he can potentially continue pushing. Like, he doesn't really have the ability to generate value for himself. He doesn't really tear apart like the heart and soul of this hand that he's going to pass back to Bunnyhoppor. Like, it's still very high value when it goes back. Like, really didn't achieve a great deal that turn.
He has gained information, though, hasn't he? He knows that Bunnyhoppor has a very reactive hand. He has Onyxia and arguably removal, right, is his whole hand right now. So he does at least get that information of saying, okay, outside of Onyxia, which is threat check 1, he doesn't actually have any development, which means maybe because of that, in a weird way, Blyze can play a bit slower because he isn't racing for the board if his opponent has no minions outside of Onyxia.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
Must move quickly.
I must consider.
Yep, his hand is pretty miserable, but what he can do is just not let Blyze have a soul mirror. Seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was debating there about whether you don't want him to have a soul mirror, whether you don't want him to have a plague of death. Like the options were Wave of Apathy and Plague of Death, or the play that Bunny made, which was the breath and the soul mirror. You can kind of deny either of those things.
Oh, does Blyze actually hold off on Lazul now? Because he knows, he has full information about the hand. He knows that he might just completely whiff here.
I must consider.
Yeah, you could also get an Onyxia.
The
That
future is
he can't play this turn though. Oh, I
Right.
don't know.
It beats passing though, right? Surely.
That does it. Oh, I don't know. I think that was really tough.
So Blyze is content to stay on the back foot for now. Doesn't really want to pick a threat for himself. He's just happy sitting back on double Plague of Death. Looks like Blyze is settling in for the long haul.
Hmm. And this is a foregone conclusion, as Bunnyhoppor also knows Blyze has a Plague of Death, a natural one in hand.
Yes.
So he knows that Blyze is almost certainly, okay, you play Onyxia, I play Plague, we reset with the minus the cards. Raise Dead into Zephyrus, coming right up.
That Kronk's draw is enormous. And I was going to raise this point when we were talking about the Onyxia, but then we got kind of deep into Mindrender country, is one of the big downsides of picking Onyxia as Priest now is this card exactly. Because... because something could have happened that didn't.
He could have got a
a
1-1.
simple step
Yeah.
should do.
But the big change in the matchup now is that Blyze has access to his Kronks, which means, believe it or not, he's actually probably ahead in value right now.
Right. Because it's weird though, isn't it? Because Bunnyhoppor's hand looks trash because
Yeah.
Blyze isn't playing minions to use the removal on.
Yeah.
Blyze's hand looks good, so he can get Galakron to generate minions to play, but that activates Bunnyhoppor's hand as well, so it still is just a kind of weird, if you can go, that means I can go too, kind of play, where it's just a big grind here, and I do wonder if Blyze is just going to go straight for this Kronks or not.
He's not. He's passing. He is giving that
Yeah.
up completely. He's saying that he can't afford to draw that extra card right now, considering that he's already one card deeper. So he's literally just committed to hanging out and waiting to draw this Galakron naturally.
And there's also the weird play now, because of Murazond, he could actually, if Bunnyhopper goes first with Galakron, he can use Murazond to activate the Galakron anyway. He can have a second activation of it later when he draws his own. But I think most importantly, a Kronks post Galakron is so strong that I do actually like him playing a little bit slower, because like I said, he plays Kronks, passes, Kronks gets removed because he knows Bunnyhopper can remove it. Then he plays Galakron, presses hero power, passes. Then he plays a minion that he also knows Bunnyhopper can kill. So it's like, does that actually do enough? Does he want Bunnyhopper to have to actually burn these cards in hand away, or he's going to overdraw?
A simple spell should do.
This time
Raised Dead at least giving Blyze something to do this turn. It's not just the instant hard pass that we saw on the previous turn. But yeah, it's a great point. He knows how reactive the hand is on Bunnyhopper's side. That combined with the fact that he certainly doesn't want to be drawing more cards right now means that he was quite content just to sit back.
There is now just Alex Straza from Bunnyhopper. But again, this Murozond is a good backup plan for Blyze as well, along with the Wave of Apathy. So if like a big Dragon Board comes out from Bunnyhoppor, he can Wave and then Murozond, and then again, although it's a lot of resources used for Blyze, Bunnyhoppor then answers, and then just goes back to the scoreboard, right? And then just see like, okay, you've used X amount of removal, I've used X amount of threats, who's actually winning at this point? And that's where it gets tricky, and that's where these players really have to sort of scry into the future of the game and find out who actually ends up on top. And that's the difficult part of this matchup.
It is. The problem with that theory from Bly's side right now is that he's already a card ahead in Fatigue, which means that this plan of like sit and wait for it all to resolve and we'll actually go to Fatigue is not necessarily working out in his favor. So I wonder whether just like going to his Galakron first and just trying to overwhelm by having Galakron for maybe 4 or 5 extra turns over your opponent might give you a better chance than just sitting back and waiting.
Yeah, it's just that he knows 6 of the 8 cards in Bunnyhoppor's hand do nothing right now. They just don't exist.
Yep.
Pretty low impact dragons, honestly.
I wonder.
Which one of these to play, or if either of these is worth playing, is not an easy decision here, because I think Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is, of course, one of the highest value things that Murozond can interact with.
Right.
Slightly worse now, because obviously you never really get the opportunity to play everything in one turn anymore. The ideal situation is that when you make a big push like this, you're just kind of threatening lethal, so you can block the Murozond that way, which, you know, Bunny isn't right now. But I think with double Soul Mirror in hand, he doesn't care too much about Bly's just saying, here's my minions. It's kind of what we've been talking about, the dynamic for the past 4 or 5 turns, is that Bly's can't really achieve anything just by playing minions just by getting minions in play and just hoping they're going to stick, because he knows they're not.
Yeah, and you see it now, right? The Alexstrasza is just left alive.
Yep.
With Bly's on 21, because Bly's just knows he has to commit to something. Even if Murozond came down, Bunnyhoppor can choose one of his 18 removal cards in hand to work out what he wants to do. He could have even used Ruin and then left his own Malygos, left his opponent's Malygos up and just not really care about it with him sat on 30 health.
Jeez.
What about Apotheosis here?
All of the Soul Mirrors.
Zappo just good because it actually pushes damage and forces Blyze into a rough spot. I don't think Smite does much. And again, although you joked, does he need a 3rd Soul Mirror?
I mean, I'm kind of into it. I think Soul Mirror is just genuinely the best card in the matchup. Maybe 3 of them's fine.
Not playing minions.
I mean, eventually, again, to the point, eventually Blyze has to play minions to win this game. He can't not do that.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree.
And of course, Bunnyhoppor playing the natural Soul Mirror. It doesn't give Blyze the extra info that the spell he got was another one, or just what it was in general.
And so it begins. The march of the Soul Mirrors and Murozonds that seems to plague basically every iteration of the Priest Mirror you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Blyze does divert though, and he does get the snipe on the bigger minion. So now the Value Train can begin. It's so late though, only 7 cards remaining in his deck.
Oh my. So what? There were 3 Soul Mirrors, now there's 3 Shadowword Runes.
Yeah.
2 Plagues. And a Broomstick.
Yeah. This is one of the weirder panouts of the Priest Mirror that I can remember watching. All-out aggro into sort of attempted Mind Render refill into the whiff, into perfect knowledge that playing minions is kind of completely useless for the rest of the game. I don't know. What are you supposed to do in that situation? Because I don't think it was this. I don't think this was the plan.
But also on the other side, it's kind of been the problem for most of the game, right? Bunnyhopper's had all the removal, but nothing to actually present threats himself, although Blyze is obviously on a low or lower health total.
Yeah.
Bunnyhopper would love a Galacron right now. There's the value.
Value
More dragons for
stacking
Blyze.
up. Blyze has 6 turns to get through the 2 plagues, the 2 ruins, and the 1 remaining soul mirror that he knows about, plus the 2nd soul mirror and the 2nd shadow. Second soul mirror, 3rd shadowed ruin that he doesn't know about, and make some kind of board stick and punish Bunnyhoppor. Because in 6 turns' time, he's going to start taking fatigue.
Right.
It just doesn't look possible.
If Bunnyhopper does give him a turn with maybe a mid-sized minion, he can see him stacking these Apotheosis, right? To start a hit back, get some health back, but the second that happens, it's 1 attack, and then Bunnyhopper just removes it again.
Yeah.
Class dismissed. Now time for the real lesson.
Interesting. I would argue the second 4/4 there might have just been enough to force one of the big removals out of Blyze's hand, but I guess Gandling isn't necessarily a good card to be holding on to. It's not something that you can really get reliably value out of with Priest. So maybe just throwing it out here as Plague of Death bait is fine.
Yeah, and hand size is a concern as well, isn't it? He does want to keep the hand at least a little bit free. And they're probably happy to see one of the plagues gone.
A simple spell should do.
Okay, Bombing Ritual is something. And the opportunity to stick some damage on board.
Hand. There's Galacron for Bunnyhopper now, so he can choose to start generating threats for himself from next turn onwards.
Yep. It's also just one more key piece of removal that doesn't necessarily, pull one of his absolute nukes out of his hand. Like, he doesn't have to Plague of Death or Soul Mirror like a small board. You saw, the Kronks earlier that he just ripped a Soul Mirror on just to kill the Kronks. Like, if that kind of situation comes up again, then Galacron could end up being very useful. Bunny doesn't even necessarily need to generate value starting right now. He chooses to. But, he's so far ahead in fatigue. Like, this is unusual in a Priest Mirror for the discrepancy between draws to be 2 cards. I mean, 2.5, I guess, being the right way to look at it, since Blyze is on the draw now.
There's Embalming Ritual again. Blyze has to make something to stick, and to be fair, he has got 7 damage this turn, right?
Yeah.
He knows that he can keep playing these minions, and he knows they're going to be removed if Bunnyhopper wants them to. But he has to do something, right? And he's taking these opportunities to use one of these Apotheosis to push as much damage as possible and hope maybe he can pull something out the bag to just quickly end the game.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't have answers to these questions, but there's still a Soul Mirror that you know about, right? So is a Divine Shield Taunt plus an Apotheosis minion really the thing that you want to be doing right now? That's such juicy Soul Mirror bait.
Right.
And again, I don't have a better play for you. I'm just sat in my ivory tower, asking easy questions about a game that is, very, very difficult to win from Blyze's side and has been for quite some time.
That's it, right? He if it's not making the strongest plays on board he can, then he may as well concede, right? I think there is 2 options, and he isn't going to concede a game until it's actually lost. So his other option is to just make plays, make Bunnyhopper play cards, and honestly just see what that Galacron hero power gives him every turn.
Mind Render. Unlucky.
Hey, Kronks.
I mean, it's Dragonmore. That's the
I
correct
know.
answer.
No, I'm just saying, like, but he wishes it was Chronix.
Yeah. Again, don't know whether that was an issue of Blyze just not wanting the card, or not understanding how the mechanics are, or just completely being checked out of this game of Hearthstone and not really caring. Any of those seem equally possible.
He has gotten progressively more horizontal as the game has continued, hasn't he? So he might be getting to the point where a lot of Priest Mirror players, I imagine, get to, where it's just like, can this end at some point soon?
Mm-hmm. But Blyze is about to receive that dreaded warning in the Priest Mirror that he is almost out of cards next turn. He is going to be hearing it first, and first by quite some distance.
All eyes have to be on Blyze to make something happen in this game. xBlyzes! It feels like a powerful card, but does it actually achieve anything? What are the literal best dragons he could get? Oh!
Thought stole the Kronks is a very big deal. I'm aware I totally ignored your question, but the Thought Steal outcome...
I'm used to it.
The Thought Steal outcome maybe just get something going.
Right.
In terms of absolute best dragons, I mean, Proto Drake that just got added is a big deal, just because it's so sticky and death rattly against a hand where you have now pulled all of the Plague of Deaths out of it, as far as you're concerned. That maybe that's a threat that can stick over long term. Outside of that, like further value generating dragons, like a Sarah of either variety, for example.
And looking at this now, that's probably if I was sat in Blyze's chair now, the plan I would come up with, and I'm not saying this is the best plan, but it's the plan I would get to, is try and hit not 5+ attack minions, because you know there's the 2 runes left at least in Bunnyhoppor's hand. Build a board similar to what this board looks like, and then just try and drop Kronks and win. With Apotheosis, I guess, as well, for extra damage. That is a far-fetched plan. Well, it is a plan that sometimes gets there, if you know that the plagues are gone.
And I think that shows in the fact that Blyze is almost fully upright again now. Like, he's actually paying attention to these last few turns, because suddenly,
so am I.
Suddenly that Kronks pull does just give him a window. There is still the Mind Render on the other side that he has to contend with. And that Soul Mirror turn, being as brutal as it was, means that he might just be forced into Murozond again this turn, just to try and secure board once more. I'm not sure whether this back and forth can ever resolve down into a position where he's able to stick board and then Kronks it on the following turn.
Yeah, what if he... There's Cabal and then Forbidden Words.
Yes.
To steal, and that doesn't require using the Murozond.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think of ways you can hold the Murozond as like maybe a better payoff.
Sure.
Maybe just slams Alex. He's gonna go for the Kronks. Okay, so Long Gone is the plan to actually buff a preset board. He's just going to use it to clear, leaves a 6/6 on board. He knows there's the Shadow Word Rune in hand for Bunnyhoppor, so he knows this is dead, but that was the option he went with for the clear, and it does surprise me a little bit, but now he might be more just back on the Murozond / Dragon Queen train.
Right.
Because if he wanted to, he could have ended that turn, removing Bunnyhoppor's board, having a board of his own, and not using Kronks, but...
This has got to be about the slowest that we've seen Blyze play since he became a Grandmaster as well, right? And possibly of all time.
Does Bunnyhoppor actually pass this turn? Is that ever a strategy for Bunnyhoppor now?
Maybe.
You don't play stuff, you can't really Murozond, you can't really do much. He has all the removal he needs.
Yeah, I mean, he is winning if nothing happens. That's first and foremost. Like, one of these players has to act, and it's not Bunnyhoppor. I guess the question is just rather, like, is having minions in play proactively just better to function as removal and the threat of lethal in this position than sitting back and waiting? And I'd probably err on Bunnyhopper's side here and say that it is.
It's just interesting because Kronk specifically is a strong removal tool as well.
Yeah.
And he did use it to just kind of accelerate the clock.
Yeah. xBlyzes needs some real big value here.
Hey, if there's someone who's going to generate a ton of spells off Sethic and actually play them, it's xBlyzes. Psycho Pump, okay. It's a good value card.
By the way, I just want to illustrate here, because, you know, a lot of people, again, we were kind of talking about, like, xBlyzes tweeting on this himself. Like, a lot of people have kind of been saying, like, oh, he's not even thinking. He's just jamming so quickly. He is. He's just thinking incredibly quickly. And you could see it happen there, because xBlyzes was going to Apotheosis, touched it for a fraction of a second, then remembered that his opponent's hand has Shadow Word Ruin in it. So actually putting Apotheosis on this thing makes it killable, while currently it isn't. All of that happened in a fraction of a second. That's all that happened. His mouse passed over the Apotheosis, and then somehow a fail-safe in his brain, even at the speed that he does play at, told him that was a bad idea, and he moved past it.
Yeah, I make turns like that and don't think, and I do not win games of Hearthstone. So, you know, I'm the proof right there. I prove the other way.
Yeah.
Alexstrasza coming down, though. The combo of Alexstrasza and Amberweaver mean that Bunnyhoppor has both the aggressive push power here with this Alexstrasza and some defensive tools as well, if somehow the fatigue plan goes further and further ahead.
Dance, puppet. The end begins.
This is actually a huge deal. This is a huge push here from xBlyzes.
It is,
and is this a guaranteed answer here from Bunnyhoppor? I don't think it is, because Wave of Apathy is going to stick until xBlyzes can hit with this Alexstrasza.
Yep. Bunny does have access to Forbidden Words of his own, though, which is also very nice when you're dealing with a 1/8 that is in reality an 8/8.
And he can steal the Alexstrasza back, essentially, as well, although that would require either a lot of work or some favor on your side.
Yeah. This way around, he also gets to pop off. That is the worst possible target. Bunny had 2 mana remaining, which means anything 2 and below could have been targeted by that Forbidden Words. Look at the other side of the board. Amazing.
I know we've spoken a lot, you know, hyping up xBlyzes, but I'm surprised that I'm sat here thinking he could win this game of Hearthstone. I'm not saying he will, but I am a lot more upright, very similar to xBlyzes right now.
14, 18, 20? It's threatening 20 right now. Yeah, I mean, Bunny just has to still kill the 8/8. And I don't know whether this was an eventuality he really calculated for when he played the Murazond, because regardless of what was targeted by the Forbidden Words, it was going to eat all of his mana. Which then kind of locked him out of the turn. And I think, you know, regardless of that spot, he would kind of been struggling a little bit. Obviously, it's so different if he actually still has the Cabal and his Lazul's scheme and Forbidden Words actually steals a minion from the other side. So, you know, maybe Bunny was planning for this all along, but it did look like it was a little bit tricky in that spot.
And look at this board. It is so resilient to Shadow Word Ruin.
Yeah. Honestly, is Bunnyhoppor just cursed? Can he just never win a Priest Mirror? Is that what this comes down to?
He does have Soul Mirror, so he can heal, put the big taunt in the way, and get all the stuff that xBlyzes has. Okay, not all the stuff, but a chunk of the stuff xBlyzes has. He does have the Amber Weaver as well. Amber Watcher. I keep calling Amber Weaver. Amber Watcher.
And actually,
to heal up the lifesteal taunt he's going to create.
Well, so I'm kind of curious about whether that's better in his hand, because like the idea of like soul mirroring a reborn Chrono Breaker here, right? Like maybe just having the dragon in hand is better than having it on board. It's
just the thing of like, if If he heals this up, I guess it still dies to the 2 minions, right?
Yeah.
Yep, he's going to keep hold of it.
I think he's still good. I think he's still fine. The fact that it's even anywhere near this close is remarkable to me, but I think Bunny is still chilling in this position.
Oh, and the answer. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with this is the Chrono Breakers, right? Like, they kind of mess everything up for everybody. Yep. Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Everything suitably messed up for everybody.
Does still have some stuff. His fatigue is stacking up, don't get me wrong, he is in a rough spot, but he has xBlyzes, he has Draconic Studies as well, he has Mind Control if Bunnyhoppor has generated, one big, incredible minion that Blyze can just yoink. Like, the Blyze still has options.
Yeah.
Even this Convincing Infiltrator, if Bunnyhoppor goes to play it, not that he will, because he's going to ruin. But if he played it, it's a very valid mind control target for Blyze, even though it looks kind of weird.
Yep. Absolutely.
Is Bunnyhoppor considering the implications of Mind Render? Surely not, right? His hand is too good?
So I've been kind of thinking about it for the last couple of turns, and I think he wants threats out of hand first, especially because in terms of the cards that he can account for in his opponent's hand, he knows Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is kind of the last remaining heavy hitter that he knows about, which is unplayable, right? Like, he can't. Oh my goodness, he can't mind render the DQA. It's just not possible. So what huge threat would Bunny be looking to mind render away from his opponent? Like, I think it has to be almost the last thing he ends up doing.
Right.
The way this is breaking down.
Well, now he knows there's a 1-mana Alexstrasza dragon in hand.
Yes. But he needs there to be a 1-mana Dragon Queen Alexstrasza in the hand, mid-dragon in the hand, and also have, answers for this board state? Unless he wants to do this, then play Mind Render, then play the dragon? Yeah, okay.
I was thinking, how many cards can he dump out and then still go and get to play that dragon, right? And he can even use Circle of Healing too.
Yeah, and this is actually super clutch because he now gets a Skeletal Dragon into his hand at the end of the turn, right? Technically.
Yes. Unless Blyze can find a way to kill it off, but that's just probably not going to happen. Also, does then Blyze not hero power? In a weird world.
Yeah, most likely.
Now, oh wait, it's just checkmate, right?
It looks that
now
way.
Blyze can't Alex himself, which is what he was planning to do.
So actually, he had to hero power into Sandhoof or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow. Oh.
Either way, Bunnyhoppor just hits end turn here, and that is GG. Yep. Bunny does get over the line. Literally the first Priest Mirror that man has ever won in his entire life. Confirmed by me. He did seem cursed on broadcast up until this point, and honestly, I've said this multiple times, I thought a lot of people were kind of shaky in the Priest Mirror last season in GM.
Right.
Understandably so, because it's not a matchup that I think there's really EV in putting time into practicing over other matchups that you could play. I think Bunnyhoppor played as well as just about anyone that I can remember seeing in Grandmasters, and I think he got 0 reward for it up until then. And that particular, it looked like he was going to coast, but it did actually get kind of sticky towards the end. But I think, all things considered, Bunny had a clean plan set up. The mind render setup, going into the fatigue turn as well, was very, very crucial. All other benefits aside, I think, Blyze was interested very much at the beginning, then rather disinterested, then slightly interested again, and then I think got kind of disinterested again towards the end as he felt it slipping away. But there were definitely some windows during that game that he was trying to take advantage of.
Yeah, the big deal for me is not only, of course, Bunnyhoppor taking the victory, going 1-0 up, but the fact that Blyze made me believe he could win that game was impressive. Because I honestly was just, for me, it was just a waiting until Bunnyhoppor naturally won the game. Because that's what the position felt like, honestly, throughout the game. It's not me being lazy or anything. It was just, it felt like Blyze it was impossible. He did put us in a state, though, where it looked like he did have a chance, but that is long gone now. We're going to be moving on into game number 2. Bunnyhoppor going to be on that priest once again in this last hero standing format. Blyze going over to the tempo mage instead of, I believe, the druid, which would have been his other option to pick.
Yes, for sure. And this is, as we mentioned earlier, a slight departure from Blythe's build on the previous week, where he has kind of fallen into line a bit more with the single copy of Conjurer's Calling. He is also playing a single copy of Mirror Image, which I think is a good pickup this week, in line with a lot of the big weapons go face kind of decks that are around in the metagame right now. Like obviously Blyze is banning Bomb Warrior, but he has been playing against Demon Hunters potentially, which is kind of the same deal. Mirror Image can be very relevant. Can also mess with Blade Dance in that matchup as well. Can even be kind of effective against Druid a lot of the time when they're just trying to get key minions to be able to attack face and be aggressive. And you just put those mirror images in the way as a roadblock. So it's an addition I kind of like in the way that the metagame is evolving. Like last week, I wouldn't have dreamed of putting a mirror image in my deck, but you know, all it takes is a few little evolutions in what the most common decks are, and I think it's one of the big reasons why Tempo Mage, I think, might stick around for quite some time is that it can quite easily adapt to situations like that. Like, do I want Arcane Missiles? Do I want Devolving Missiles? Do I want Mirror Image? Do I want Brain Freeze? Minor changes to the deck suddenly change the matchup spreads quite a bit more than you might expect.
And in this matchup, do you think the Highlander variant of Priest versus the 2 of regular Galakron is a hindrance to Bunnyhoppor in this game, or is it going to still be okay with the amount of coverage even Highlander has?
My experience is that the Highlander version is slightly harder to beat. They do just seem to have it's weird to say it, but they have more consistent removal for early game threats, so you can't just kind of try and scam them with an early Shenvala or an early Sorcerer's Apprentice that they don't have the answer to. Because a lot of the 2 of lists, weirdly, are playing less cards like Penance and Breath of the Infinite and all that kind of stuff. Right? They cut all that stuff out and they're going way more like mid-rangey with dragons. So the Highlander list has that benefit going for them, where they have Holy Smite, they have Penance, they have Breath of the Infinite to be able to clear up early. And then on top of that, I think they like more consistently pressure you out the game if it gets to that point as well in the mid game, with Zephyrus swings, with Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, with those unique options that they have available to them. So I've certainly found the Highlander version a little more difficult to deal with.
Yeah, and the stats this season seem to back that up, as it's 11-14 versus Highlander, so negative there, whereas it's 26-20 versus Galakron, so regular 2 of. So yeah. What Saul said has been statistically proven in the season of Grandmasters at least, so good job there, Saul. Here, though, for Bunnyhoppor, not only can you say this Highlander Priest is favoured versus the Mage, but this opening looks pretty solid to me. Breath of the Infinite, the Zephyrus on Q, even a Swampooze is just something to throw down that is in the way of the Mage that they have to think about dealing with. It looks pretty solid, and even Mind Render if Bunnyhoppor has to throw these tools away. And the power of Mind Render versus Mage is sometimes you can really go off even though it's 3 mana now and not 2.
This is what, the 3rd time in almost as many games we're going to see Priest going Zephyrus into Wild Growth. This is really not something that we've been used to seeing in any of the Highlander decks outside of Mage too much, really. Like I think Highlander Hunter generally stopped doing this as well for the most part.
I like this a lot though, just because of Bunnyhoppor's hand, because the more mana he has, the more he can just go Mind Render and then play all of the Mage cards, which cost nothing, and then just say, enjoy the rest of your game, Mr. Mage.
Yep.
Oh, the Lazul for the Prime potential?
It's also a great 1-2 punch to have. Like, you use Lazul as your scouting party just to take a look at the hand and, like, figure out
Right.
whether it's something that you want to mind render in the future.
I must
Yeah, honestly, like rogues are generally seen as the spy, you know, like secret agent style class. It's just priest, honestly, isn't it? They're like the double agent that you never saw coming.
Right.
Ooh, it's just gonna go for this coin into the Cabal Shadow Priest just to steal away from this lab partner, not go fishing yet, which, honestly, if you're looking at it for the style you spoke about of scouting the hand, well, Bunnyhoppor's probably not gonna mind render next turn, so he doesn't need to Lazul this turn.
That's very fair. Cyclone off the top. Lies thought about it for roughly 0.8 seconds and then popped off.
Yeah, really solid devolve there, making that 4-drop an Argus, which was frostboltable.
Frostboltable.
It's a word because I said it and you understand what I meant.
Yeah, oh, agreed.
Yeah, Breath of the Infinite, fantastic tool versus Mage. With outside of those Mana Giants and a few other choice pieces, there aren't really many minions that stand up to a Breath of the Infinite too well.
Lies probably going to feel like he's getting primed here, but he is not. Bunnyhoppor has whiffed.
Good though, he doesn't have to overthink about the secret if it gets played, right? Didn't have to think about counterspell. Nice small bonus there.
Yep. That's a good point.
Oof, double intellect. And we've seen this happen, or at least I'm seeing it happen more and more for mage players. They really, if they have access to card draw, they don't try and do anything overly fancy in the early mid game. They just go, right, let me draw a hand full of cards, and then you'll see what I can do. Whereas I think when right at the start of the expansion, it was very much, oh, can I go off this turn, or is this enough this turn to just, you know, an apprentice and a few spells? Whereas now it's like, no, let me just gather everything up and then go. And it does seem to be the more powerful outcome more often, right?
It does. But it's still just a reaction to what's in your hand, right? Because we've already seen Xblyzes do both, where he already went Sorcerer's Cyclone once, because he didn't have card draw in his hand. What he had in his hand was a Sorcerer's, a few cheap spells, and a Cyclone. So he did that. And then after that point, that generated an AI, and he picked up another AI. So it's like, okay, yeah, cool. Now I can sit back, chill, I can gather some resources, I can look for some powerful swing turns.
Yeah, the mana render coming down, and although, of course, it doesn't... You can't play the Prime on Bunnyhoppor's side. It does stop Xblyzes playing the Prime on curve, which is at least something to consider. And you can just dump this evocation.
Yeah, this is smart, though. I was about to say, before Bunny does anything, like, playing Mind Render is Bizarro World. Everything is backwards, and it takes really long to adjust yourself to it. So every fiber of your Hearthstone being is screaming at you there, like, sick, play some spells and play the Cyclone and get more spells. No, you want to do the exact opposite of that. You want to do the worst thing possible that turn.
Sometimes it's actually better to think of it less about you taking your opponent's deck and more you switching seats with your opponent for a turn.
Sure.
Right? Because whatever you do impacts the rest of their game in the hand and deck.
Yeah.
Not strictly true, of course, because of minions you play, you keep on board. But just generally speaking, I think you'll be less punished if you think about it that way than something like that. But having access to this Arcane Intellect and a Thought Steal means, though his hand's looking a bit rubbish now, it can very quickly improve. Okay, question. Do you trade the Mind Render before he raises
absolutely
dead?
trade it first.
What's higher chance of Zephyrus? I imagine.
Yep. Yeah, that was the downside.
He does now know there is a Prime in hand, so he can go fishing for one with Lazul before it almost certainly gets played next turn, and gets it.
Yeah, personally, I do think that the pool improved if he traded the Alicia in first, but I can certainly hear the argument of, like, you know, especially with the Prime in hand, like, Lazul and Zephyrus were just so much better than everything else.
Yeah, suddenly if you get both, you're like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
No decision point here. Is this definitely Prime? Because it certainly does not have to be.
I have become one with the void.
Just gonna go. And there we go. Look, even Bunnyhoppor reacted the same way. Like, okay.
And we're off. Yep. Great. Yep. Yep. Uh-huh.
Just making noises at this point.
Alright, back to the mage spells. Okay, yep, nope, sign me up, sign me up. This game
Wise
wasn't
is
clowny
trying
enough just
to
yet.
find the breaks. Can't even react.
It says it's
Eventually, there's some more mage spells coming. There's more mage spells coming. Don't you worry. They're in here somewhere. There we go. There it was, just mirror image. Oh, that was the perfect anticlimax to that utter nonsense. It was just a mirror image at the end of it all. Oh my goodness.
Well, we know what Bunnyhopper's got to play.
By the way, this 1-3 on the far right has Mega Wind Fury right now.
I have become
Why?
Because it got given Wind Fury, and there's the Mega Wind Fury guy on the board. That also has Mega Wind Fury.
What?
Alright. Heal for 2. Heal for 2. And then just get Mega Wind Furied out of the game.
Yep.
Yes, Bunny. That was a game of Hearthstone that you just played.
I feel like Bunnyhopper's writing a tweet right now before he presses enter, and he's getting that locked in and loaded. Oh.
Making sure he gets all the screenshots he needs.
You have best.
Gonna be honest,
Wow.
it's not doing the best for Bly's case that he's not luckier than other people.
Guys, it's not just luck. One prime equals one victory here for Blyze. Was interesting up until that point, and then Prime did its job, and it is a shame because Prime, just as Prime, would have just been a continuation of that game. It would have looked good for Blyze, but the game would have continued. Bunnyhoppor gets his Prime back, but the two boxes being so so net positive for Blyze, on top of a Prime kind of naturally being positive, was just way too much, and that is a game Bunnyhoppor just have to erase from his memory.
Yeah, so Prime into double box, and the first box went make minions, gift of the wild. Like, yeah, that's kind of a problem. And Bunny, had his own Prime, but it wasn't anywhere near on the same level. The end of it was just objectively funny, where the last mage spell just came back and was just mirror image with a full board. That was the climax to everything. And then lab partner with Mega Wind Fury getting devolved into getting Conjurer's Calling into young Dragonhawk that also has Mega Wind Fury. Like, I was entertained. I was sports entertained by that game, Raven.
And it's not often, I'll admit, to being entertained after boxes get played. So
No.
We'll take that as a true rarity. Without too much surprise, it looks like Bunnyhoppor is going to be moving over to his Soul Demon Hunter to take down this Mage of Blyze. But is it going to be enough versus the power of the Prime Soul? That's the real question.
I mean, yeah, who knows, right? It feels like common analysis goes out the window when you're dealing with Blyze. But, I mentioned it earlier, like, I think this matchup and the Rogue matchup are potentially just a big reason why this Demon Hunter deck even exists in the metagame. We saw Blyze trying to fight off from Tice's side with the kind of cute mirror image setup that he had going, which didn't really end up being good enough in the end. But the reason he kind of had to come up with that weird scrambly half win condition is that he was just miles behind already by turn 5, and that's very much my experience. And one of the reasons that kind of put me off continuing to play mage at like high legend this season, which I did during the start of the expansion, is that these demon hunters all started to appear, and it just was not a fun matchup to keep playing. So yeah, I think Bunnyhoppor's in a pretty good spot here in this matchup.
It does get a little bit weird though, doesn't it? Because that means wait, what was game 1? Because does that mean Blyze would have his druid left again?
What was game 1? Game 1 was the priest mirror, right?
Oh, of course. I thought that was last week. It felt so long. Yeah, of course. So that would mean if Blyze does lose this game, then he has a decent matchup with Druid versus Demon Hunter.
Yep.
And then it goes back again to Rogue versus Druid, which then can be tough. So very much as you get in the idea here, and we did touch on yesterday that last year's standing often feels like it's a sweep or it's all the way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if things go to plan, if all like the 55-60% matchups break down the way that they're supposed to, then yeah, you'll likely go back and forth. If you don't go back and forth in that scenario, it's probably a sign that something was wrong with your lineup coming into the tournament. But that doesn't always happen because 55% isn't that favored. Like it can just break a series wide open if a deck wins an unfavorable in last hero standing.
Blyze just choosing a counterspell once again, which must mean he's got a 10-turn plan for that counterspell, and it's going to just win him the game in the long run.
Yep.
I do feel like Blyze plays like a heist movie, right? Where like it's one small thing you did much earlier on in the game, like 18 turns later, he's like, haha, this was planned for all along.
But he was dressed as the casino workers the entire time!
Not the best.
Skip?
Demons.
Double
Demons.
jump isn't horrible here. Like, 1 mana to throw a good card from your deck does seem pretty good.
Yeah, I guess so.
Is it, on average, better or worse than the mystery choice? I think it's pretty solid because it gets you to your best cards in the deck.
Okay. I hear that argument. Bunny does too. I was very confused for a second. What was Rare Frost leading the tournament? Okay, he just wants something to combo the One Thief. Fair enough.
We're going to go for the coin cram session. You do have to just stop and reassess whenever you use the coin with a Shambhala in hand. Just to see if there was ever a chance of it popping off a little bit earlier with the coin there. But did just want those extra card draws to open up some turns. Firebrand will be able to put a stop to pretty much any minion Bunnyhoppor could play this turn.
Yep. Currently 0 shards in the deck just yet, which means these are a pair of 3-cost Bloodfen Raptors right now.
Yep, this could be where double jump helps him out just a little bit. Even if it's a slow turn. Other options, he could Blade Dance this away.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly though. He could. He shouldn't, but he could.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is definitely one of the matchups as well that you can utilize the an early Eldraki Warblades without too much worry. It's not often you get him burst down so fast and you need the big late game heals. If this weapon removes minions in the early game, then it is going to reduce the power of the mage there. So it's definitely a card I talk about a lot in any matchup, but versus mage, it can be good to just pick away targets.
That Marrow Slicer is now a huge deal. Bunny was looking like he might have one of those draws that I don't think we've really seen with this deck so far in Grandmasters, which can happen, where you just don't ever really get rolling with the soul fragments, and you just get in trouble because your deck just doesn't work at all. But I think this is pretty important. And I was going to have a debate about, you can either straight up overwrite this turn, take a little bit more damage, and preserve a Twin Slice, or you can do what Bunny did, which expends a Twin Slice, heals for a bit more, and preserves a charge of the Marrow Slicer instead, which I think was actually pretty close.
It is. I do like this, though. There's no weapon removal in xBlyzes list, unless I'm going crazy.
Nope.
So no reason too much not to hold off, apart from the small benefits now. Well, now we get to see, right? Bunnyhoppor can just go Lapidary, Hero Power, get him, and really make xBlyze think about his turn. He's going to test for the counterspell first.
Nailed it.
Yep.
That's what the double jump was for all along.
Makes sense. I do just like the Lapidary, though. Make your opponent have to deal with a 5/5, and then you hit them for 9. And Mage isn't exactly going to regenerate tons of health, right? Outside of generated ice barriers now and again.
Yeah, that's the number one problem in the matchup, is that if Demon Hunters get comfortable in this matchup, and they can start doing this, they just have to count to 30, and Mage has very little defense against that. They are a very offensive deck overall. Their resiliency comes generally through stalling minions and removing minions very efficiently. When that isn't your game plan at all, and your game plan is just damage directly to face, then they really kind of fall over in terms of a defensive deck against what you're throwing at them.
Looks a little bit weird, but I imagine the Shard Shatter could come down this turn, just to open up Skull of Gul'dan the turn after.
Demons. Demons.
Yeah, I like it.
It does the job of killing a 1/2, but honestly, like, even if he leaves the 3/1 up, fine, you have a 3/2, right? So xBlyze has to consider that minion, but most importantly, I think Bunnyhoppor just wants to draw through his deck and get those cheap cards.
Yeah, agreed.
I see.
I also
Ooh,
forgot
shit.
that Bunny was playing the list with the Spectral Sight in it, which does again go to influence the choice of the double jump, because my fear is like, does he even really want to draw second skull in like a weird position in the middle of his hand anymore, right? Like, he already has one skull, does he need the second one? But the fact that he could have had the option to go double jump into Spectral Sight at some point is actually pretty relevant. Didn't consider that at the time.
And even I-beams versus Mage, right, are like pretty solid, you know, to just spot remove a minion. I think a lot of the outcomes were actually quite good, and arguably the Skull of Gul'dan outcome was probably the worst out of the options he had.
Yeah. Sure.
Consume Magic as well. Oh, there you go. Consume Magic as well is in the list.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, there's actually a lot more Outcast in this list than I'm used to seeing with kind of like the standard ladder list. So yeah, I think that does influence the decision, make double jump a lot better than it was.
I grow impatient.
So, again, I actually like maybe the overcommittal of Shard and a Blade Dance if required. Not so much now, because of the I-Beam. He can get away with just the Blade Dance, of course, now with that card draw.
Right.
But the important thing I want to point out is, although that's 2 AoEs, so to speak, used up, or it would have been, he gets to swing face, right? It is the big key, and I think that's key for him right now. If he can clear the board, swing face again, skull next turn, open up some more damage, this game will end very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Time grows short.
Think about whether he wants to just lock in second slice or preemptively play a Shard Shatter. I can't imagine it's the Mystic.
Demons.
Yeah, likely just thinking of like mana allocation off Skull next turn. So like he spends 6 on Skull. If he draws X, Y, and Z, how much extra mana does he need to be able to just straight up get lethal on the next turn? And that's why you play Conjurer's Calling in your deck. It wins games that sometimes nothing else can. There is the Cane still in hand for Bunny, so this is by no means over, but that is a big, big deal. This is an entirely different game of Hearthstone than it was last turn now.
Yeah, and I think Bunnyhoppor starts with the skull to reassess the plan. And Polkelt is pretty huge. A blade that... Oh, wow, these are just good cards.
They are.
Polkelt will throw the Sociologist to the top. I'm not 100% sure on the Soul Fragment count, but that can help punch through a Tyrion. But most importantly, so does a 0-mana Blade Dance.
Yeah, Blade Dance can kind of deal with it right now to an extent, although only having one charge left on the weapon is a bit of a problem. There are currently 2 Soul Fragments in the deck for the Sociologist on the follow-up, by the way.
I think this could just be a hold. Just take 11.
But then you're getting Conjurer's Calling again? Is that scary when you're trying to set up a Blade Dance? If you don't fall clear right now, you're kind of in trouble, right?
I think it's okay because of Kane too, and the Shard Shatter. It's a lot of AoE damage. The problem with this Tyrion is he needs one turn to go off because he's already used a Consume Magic. So he's just back on this Kane is the way he gets to like cheat through the Tyrion.
Yes.
Or he can go Shard Shatter and then AoE.
Hello? That's
I'm
pretty
surprised
good.
it just didn't give Blaze a Frostbolt for some reason as well.
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
The trick totem into Frostbolt face or something.
This is so many minions now, though. It's so many minions. That's why I was reacting to the Troublemaker. Like, the Blade Dance outs have just got so slim.
Yep.
There is the Shard Shatter that can clear up some of the auxiliary stuff first, but you have to allocate mana to that. I think Bunny's plan was to poke out and draw to find his other Soul Shard Lapidary, potentially be able to end the game right now.
But that wouldn't be enough, right? Mana-wise?
I don't think so, no.
Because he would draw the Sociologist first, so he'd have to draw twice.
He's already reshuffled as well. He's already reshuffled. I'm
Oh,
stupid.
sorry,
I'm stupid.
Yeah. Agreed.
Or
so
rather,
now
he
this
hasn't shuffled yet, is what I mean to say.
This is a little bit different because he has Mystic, which clears a good chunk off. He has Eye-Beam for free to help, and then a Soul Share, and then he can go for the Blade Dance, I believe.
Okay.
That will work.
Time grows short.
Yeah,
I mean,
Eye-Beam...
It doesn't matter, right? You just pick one
doesn't
and kill
matter.
it.
Yeah, you just pick a minion.
There you go.
Telling
Yep,
Bunnyhopper's brain that a decision doesn't matter is a very difficult thing to do, though, Raven.
Whereas for me,
Easy as pie, baby.
do it every day. But yeah, here's the Blade Dance, and most importantly, like I mentioned, it opens up the swing to face, which is absolutely huge. And suddenly, what looked like a nightmare scenario for Bunnyhoppor, he's only really facing down an Ashbringer, and he's on 18 health.
Yep. Very, very nicely done. Even if some form of resiliency does come through here, yeah, Mirror Image was about the best that he could do. Bunny has minions in play to have that checked. If there's some form of ice barrier generated or something, Bunny's next draw is going to be the Soul Shard Lapidary, I believe, at this point. Now Polkout has been played. So yeah, Bunny has 1 million damage and Kane on top of all of that, just to finish it all off.
Kane just blasts through this anyway.
Yep.
Oh, really crazy game there, but again, it does just show the options and why it was important earlier on for Bunnyhoppor to just play that Shard Chatter to open up the skull, even though it was a very meh Shard Chatter, you'd argue against Mage, right? Open up the skull, and then you just front load so many cheap cards that give you so many options to clear boards and go face. So I think really well executed by Bunnyhoppor there.
Yeah, and I definitely, like, the shout-out has to go to that turn where Bunny chilled and did nothing. Like, you heard me, I was kind of panicking at the time. Like, wait, if Conjurer's Calling happens again, do you have enough to clear through all of that with your Blade Dance, potentially? Bunny said yes, and just drew. And the fact that his path, like, diverted so much from mine, like, melted my brain to the point where, like, I forget that Polkelt wasn't even played at that point. It's just still in his hand. But Bunny correctly assessed the situation to the point where if he drew enough cards, he can clear basically any board that came down. Kind of proven by the fact that it's hard to imagine a better board being generated off one additional Conjurer's Calling than the one that did come out. And Bunny still had it dealt with very, very comfortably. So that to me was the turn where Bunny really put his stamp of quality on that game, where he just absolutely did not overreact to the situation. drew cards, filled up his hand, big swing turn, end the game on the following turn. Very nicely done.
Yeah, and showing a fairly solid understanding of a relatively new archetype, honestly. Because
isn't
even
over
though
between us,
like
brother.
Druid with the expansion changed a bit, and there's a lot of new cards like Guardian Animals, the basis of like the Mount Seller style of Mount Seller, Ysera, so on, is more or less intact, right? It's kind of the same as last expansion, just a bit more powerful, you could argue.
Right.
But this Demon Hunter is maybe outside of the first few days of the last expansion within a demon and stuff, and KT as well. This is a bit of a new thing with a lot of different mechanics to play around with, especially those soul fragments, which do make a big impact. Like you were saying, when you don't shuffle the soul fragments in, a lot of your cards do nothing, so you have to manage them. So yeah, really well played there, but he's going to have a tough one now going up against xBlyzes Druid, which is one that's a little bit harder for the Demon Hunter to manage.
And I believe this is now post-mulligan for Blyze, which means this is about the worst hand we have seen him had to deal with while playing Druid up until this point. And it is not appearing to get any better.
Especially because the Twilight Runner can be dealt with by Demon Hunter because of Blade Dance. It's a great tool to just clear that off. There's also the Magtheridon, of course, in Bunnyhoppor's hand there. Again, very, very, very awkward to deal with. We saw Felkane fall to it, but that was more of his own issue than his disability to clear it. But Marrow Slicer now, Blade Dance, and Magtheridon. I'm starting to see a plan, Sol.
It's a pretty fast developing plan, yeah.
I guess he could also use the Aldraki Warblades for that instead and save the coin.
Sure.
Because you can just, like, the turn after, you can just hero power Blade Dance.
That's very true, yes.
And worst case, has some of those there, the Soul Share there can help out along with the weapon swing to kind of like spot remove them one by one if need be.
Right. Now, however, with the Ghidra coming down, plans might just change. Speaker Ghidra has a funny way of changing your plans.
Can still deal with it though with this coin into the Marrow Slicer of clean kill and still go for Magtheridon into Blade Dance afterwards.
Yes.
Obviously like 2 turns afterwards, you know what I mean. And as we can see, it'll actually give him the option of potentially sniping this Twilight Runner. Oh, he's going to hold the coin, okay. So he wants to... So next turn he can play Magtheridon.
And then coin out Marrow Slicer and Blade Dance in the same turn, potentially.
Or go the other way, right, and go Marrow Slicer and then Magtheridon coin.
Magtheridon coin Blade Dance, yeah.
Means you don't take 3, I guess.
Yeah, this is the problem that you kind of get yourself into, though, by not necessarily just having the Marrow Slicer equipped here.
Yeah.
Is that you don't have the Blade Dance punish for this exact play.
This did require the Innovate, though, right? Like, that's probably what Bunnyhoppor wasn't overly thinking about.
Yeah, it's fair.
Because otherwise, he equips the Marrow Slicer now. xBlyze makes that play on curve next turn. And then he has the choice of how he wants to deal with it. Yeah, this definitely makes it a little bit more awkward with this fate. But also, he could play Magtheridon, and what that does is say, well, if Blyze attacks with Runner and doesn't develop more minions, just draws cards, he can swing the weapon into one and then Blade Dance the other 3.
Yep.
It's a weird little dance that's going to go on here right now.
But you can, again, just do that the other way around, where you just, like, Marrow Slicer and pass this turn, and then if he attacks, you just have the same deal with Magtheridon, point Blade Dance. If, again, there's no more minions coming down.
Oh, there's also just Shard Shatter now, right? But he doesn't have any fragments in.
He does.
Right? Oh, he Soul Shared earlier, didn't he? He Soul Shared, my apologies.
Yep. It's the whole reason
Yeah, so
we're in
this
this
is-
position is that he soul sheared instead of playing the Mara Slicer to deal with the Hydra.
Yep. Oh, well, I guess here he kind of has best of both worlds. Now he can shard, clear the board, the death rattle goes off, and then he has most of the time I-Beam hero power is going to get the job done, right?
Yeah. And Blaze with the very un-French round of applause, as that actually seemed to be sarcastically for his opponent, as opposed to for himself, which is not what we're used to seeing.
I felt like a language hacker clap.
Yeah, it did very much. Zero
Dude,
risk
honestly-
here, because even if Emperor Cobra had appeared, you can see the I-Beam was on deck to deal with it, so there was very little downside for Bunny in this situation. Looks like Blyze might be tabbed out, preparing his salty tweets for the game.
Told you I was unlucky.
Yes.
I do think there was a fair reason there for Bunnyhoppor to stop and sit and think whether it actually even needed to I-Beam that at all, and just save an I-Beam in hand. There were some pretty dangerous targets that I-Beam could help make up the numbers for, but most importantly, he just has a 12-12.
He has a 12-12, yeah.
He could...
There's some lovely thoughts you have there, Raven. I'm going to let you finish in a minute, but he just has a 12-12.
And this does just become, or potentially become quite simple. You could just Lapidary Hero Power, kill the 4-6, get to push 12. Suddenly, attacking with your face into your opponent doesn't feel as important when you have a 12-12 on the board doing the job for you, right?
Yeah.
Such a beautiful shield.
Yeah, Bunnyhoppor taking his time considering the different options, but realistically, this just makes sense. Now this turn, he has a Marrow Slicer, Hero Power into Blade Dance if he needs to remove, say, Guardian Animals on curve. That would help a lot as well, push tons of damage. So all the options in the world are there, really. And is that just lethal?
It is just lethal, yes.
It is just lethal. Yeah, Consume Magic helps him out, the Blade Dance helps him out, and there's just a concede from Blyze. He knows that is going to be game, and Bunnyhoppor is going to lock in a spot in the top 4 tomorrow, and there's a bit of a sigh of relief, and honestly, I don't blame him. This has definitely been a series of ups and downs for Bunnyhoppor, you know, winning that super long Priest Mirror that must have been exhausting, honestly, and then having, you know, arguably the next game just destroy him with the Mage from Blyze, and then just going up and down from there. So a pretty tough series for Bunnyhoppor overall, but got to be happy with that result.
Yeah, I think this is a series where Bunny may have just vanquished some demons. Firstly, he won a Priest Mirror. That's one, you know, chip off his shoulder that he hasn't been able to deal with up until now. Secondly, after the Prime into box result that he got hit with against the Mage, you know, a lesser mentally strong player would have thought, oh, is this just GM for me now? Like, I just lose to boxes? Like, after what happened to me against Silvername in the final, like, this is what I come back to? This is just my Hearthstone now? But obviously, like, that isn't Bunny. Like, Bunny knows that if he just keeps playing great, he's going to win more games than he loses, because he's freaking Bunnyhoppor and he's just amazing at the game. So, head down, play Hearthstone again, coming out with the result that he needs, and now he's through to Sunday. So, Blyze is going to find himself in the lower bracket, waiting for the victor of Tice, who he defeated in the opener, or his French compatriot in Falcane, who has got a couple of points to prove after his opener on stream was kind of less than stellar overall. But it's going to be a pretty awesome lower bracket. Looking forward to it.
It is, yeah. I mean, again, just you could say it's always about Grandmasters, but when you get so many back-to-back qualifiers, I just want to see who makes it into that top 4, because the point gain is so big. We might end up seeing just the cream of the crop at the top of Division A, and then everyone else, and then suddenly that just brings all eyes onto that Division A as we get into that round-robin stage. So I'm really excited to see how today and this weekend develops. Of course, we do have that top